Come with us on a journey into the unknown, the unexplained, and the unbelievable. We will test your senses and challenge your beliefs. A world where science and religion clash. Or do they? You will meet real people and hear real stories, but you will not believe. You will witness strange sights and hear strange sounds, but you will not believe. This is the New England Ghost Project. Welcome to the nightmare.
Good evening, everyone. And never had so many owed so much to so few, because we have a small staff tonight.
Yes, we do.
Welcome to our special World War II edition of Ghost Chronicles Next Generation. I am Ron Kolek, of course, and with me is my lovely co-host, the blonde bombshell herself, Miss Anne Kerrigan.
Hello, hello, I'm over here. Hi, there I am.
There you go.
Hi, everybody.
That's almost like a uniform. What is that you're wearing?
I know. Okay, so this is Great Uncle Norman's hat. He was in the
Stormin' Norman?
Army, Stormin' Norman. Norman LaBelle, who was my husband's great uncle, and he served in World War II, and this is his hat. And I just thought that I would wear it in honor of Norman tonight, since we were talking about D-Day, and I've got his dog tags. I need to stop saying and he was in the infantry, I believe. It's a little infantry pin. I have a bag of his pins and his little medals. Well, I haven't seen the actual medals, but things that he would have worn on his uniform. So that is where my hat came from.
What's that thing there? That cool thing?
Oh, this cool thing?
Yeah.
This is a lighter.
Really?
This is, okay, that's how it goes. It's made out of like a bullet casing, bullet
yep.
shell. So,
oh, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether no, it says made in
Japan.
Austria.
Oh, good.
Made in Austria. No, probably not Japan back then. I don't know.
No.
Well, they made stuff in Japan.
You know what's really
They didn't
funny?
make this in Japan.
You know what's funny in the end, though, is that after the war, of course, you could get all kinds of stuff that was made in Japan, and that was a joke. Like, oh, made in Japan, ha ha. And then, of course, the Japanese came up with all this great electronics and stuff, and and cars and stuff, and it's like America fell behind. It's like,
Right.
just be careful who you laugh at, I guess.
That's true. That is true.
I don't know why anybody. I mean, all countries should start wars with them, and we just take them and make them into these great countries.
Let's all just start a war.
Yeah, start a war with the United States. They'll dump
not.
money into your economy
Please,
and
let's not.
make you very good. And damn,
Rather
whatever.
not.
Never.
So why are we here tonight? What are we talking about?
We already did that in the beginning of the show. Don't you remember my beautiful introduction?
Oh,
So many owe so much to so few.
Okay.
That was Winston Churchill.
Okay.
Remember Winston Churchill?
I remember
The
Winston
guy with the
Churchill,
cigar.
the big
Used
bad
to
guy.
dictate to his secretary naked in the bathtub.
Nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
True
Hashtag
story.
me too. Yeah.
True story. In fact, speaking of Winston Churchill, he stayed at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And he got out. We talked about this on our.
We
I
did.
think, and he came out of the bathtub and naked, of course. And there was
Prancing around.
Lincoln was there. He was by the fireplace.
Looking him up.
Probably say, "What
and
the hell happened to
down."
our country? We let these perverts in." Whatever. Anyways, we have a great show. We're going to talk about a lot of stories from World War II, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to touch upon the Nazis and the occult, because there seems to be a relationship between the Nazis and the occult.
I would believe that.
Right.
I would definitely believe
but
that.
anyway, we'll talk about that. But first, before we do that, we should probably go into our paranormal news segment.
Yes.
Today, right?
Yes. So instead of cemetery tripping this evening,
No cemetery trip?
sorry,
Oh.
I promise I'll bring it back next time. I know you miss it.
Speaking about cemeteries,
Yes.
we always think of D-Day and everybody honored over there, and you see the fields with all the crosses for all the Americans and all the other nationalities who died. Mm-hmm. The Germans have a cemetery too over there.
Really?
Yeah, and they go every year. Well, not every year, but they go and honor their dead as well.
Wow.
Because, I mean, we think of war, we think of, you know, the enemy, and they're just like horrid people, and, but they're fighting for, you know, we're not talking SS here, we're talking about the regular Wehrmacht. You know, they were fighting for what they believed in and what they were told, and so, you know, they were just honest guys, a lot of them that just,
That's true.
like we did, so.
I think that no one ever thinks they're the bad guy.
That's true. Well, you got to remember,
don't.
history is written by the victor.
This is true.
So,
this is true.
If you lost, you're a bad guy.
Yeah, so we know that I love The Walking Dead, and
Yes.
that was a line from Negan in this past season, and he had said that to Michonne, and he said, "Well, I never thought that we were the bad guys. No one ever thinks they're the bad guy."
So who
You're
was
just
he?
trying-
The Walking Dead was saying this?
Negan was the bad guy.
Oh, there you go.
He was the bad guy.
But he
He
wasn't.
did do some terrible things,
Yeah.
but everybody sees it from their own perspective.
Exactly.
So let's go ahead, and we are going to play the Paranews.
And with perspectives on a potpourri of subjects.
A potpourri?
Yes,
A potpourri?
A potpourri of subjects.
potpourri. Anyways, here's the paranormal news. Please.
Welcome to Paranormal News. I'm your host, Nathan Mayer. Let's get down to the first story. The Pentagon has finally admitted that it investigates reports of UFOs. In a statement, a Department of Defense spokesman said that the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program did pursue research and investigation into unidentified aerial phenomena. Christopher Shearwood, a spokesman, acknowledged that the department investigates claimed sightings of alien spacecraft to ensure defense of the homeland and protection against strategic surprise by our nation's adversaries. Nick Pope, a former UK defense official, said, "This new admission makes it clear that they really did study what the public would call UFOs." John Greenwald Jr., whose website, The Black Vault, archives declassified government on UFO reports, Bigfoot sightings, and other subjects, called the Pentagon's use of the term unidentified aerial phenomena unprecedented in its frankness, and hopes it will release more information about the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, either by voluntary disclosure or through request under the Federal Freedom of Information Act. Our next story is about the Loch Ness Monster. A major scientific study of Loch Ness has sensationally discovered Nessie might be real. Experts traveled the length of the famous loch on research vessel Deepspan, taking water samples from 3 different depths. The scientists collected DNA left by all creatures from their skin, scales, feathers, fur, and feces. The DNA samples were then sent to labs in New Zealand, Australia, Denmark, and France to be analyzed for the final findings. Professor Neil Gemmell of the University of Otago, New Zealand, and his team who carried out their project have now concluded their research. Being an expert in genomics, ecology and population, conservation and evolutionary biology, Professor Gemmell says that they tested the data against most of the main theories about Loch Ness Monster, and the results were surprising, with one of the theories might being correct. He hopes to announce the full findings of the study in Scotland next month. We'll keep tuned and I'll keep you up to date. The last story for you today, the Ghostbusters are coming back to the big screen. And this time around, the film will continue the story that began with the original 1984 movie. Set to be directed by the Juno and Up in the Air filmmaker Jason Reitman, the son of the original Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman, Ghostbusters 3 will bring back some of the first film's cast, including Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Sigourney Weaver. Expected to hit theaters in July of 2020, the film will also introduce some new, younger characters to the Ghostbusters canon. Details are scarce regarding the film, but the film is set in the present day and rumored to follow two brothers and sister pairs, including a 13-year-old boy who is dedicated conspiracy theorist and a 12-year-old girl who struggles with interpreting and expressing emotions. Filming is expected to begin this year, with Jason Reitman penning the script and Ivan serving as producer. And I'd like to give a shout out to my hometown, Somerset, who I recently found out that they actually air this program. So if you want to see my ugly mug or Anne's and Ron's beautiful faces, the showtimes there is Tuesdays at 9 p.m., Thursdays at 9 a.m., and Fridays at 9 p.m. Back to you, Anne and Ron.
All right.
Wow, we made it to the big time.
We
We're
made
in
it to Somerset. Hi, Somerset.
Yeah. You know, isn't it apropos we're doing this show on World War II, and then we have the great rising sun behind?
Oh, I know, right?
Japanese symbol. Yeah.
I always think that
Doma-san.
every time we shoot that. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Oh, so.
That was pretty good.
Yes, very interesting. I don't know how much longer we can continue to beat Ghostbusters to death, but
Are you kidding me? We're all excited about it.
I guess so.
Yeah,
You can't-
especially since the last one bombed so badly. You know, that's
I
because
don't
they went totally different. But yeah, in fact, Dylan Jones, who will be here in September,
Yes.
he was at the convention. In
He
fact,
was,
He,
yeah.
what do you call it? He chaired a paranormal panel out there,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 panels, talking about ghosts. And in fact, Steve Parson and Karen O'Keefe and I think Cal Cooper, they did a special video piece about ghosts in the real world and ghosts and Ghostbusters. So there you go. You know, it's an interesting thought. If they ever want to do it, because Sigourney Weaver could come back as a ghost, not so much as the character from the original Ghostbusters, but the character from Red Lights. You ever see Red Lights?
No.
Oh, Red Lights is a cool story. It's Sigourney Weaver's in it, of course, and it's about paranormal investigating at a university and 2 different departments and strange things that go on. And yeah, it's a good flick. If you like paranormal, I think you'll like it. So anyway.
I'll have to check it out. How old is it? Is it
Not
that era?
No.
Oh.
It's like a couple of years old or whatever.
Oh, it's
Called
not
Red
from
Lights.
1984. Okay,
No, not 84. It's new.
I'll have to check it out.
Red Lights. Red Lights.
Red lights.
Yep. So anyways, we're sitting here, and before you get into your thing, this is an angel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a famous ghost story about the angel of, oh God, I just can't remember anymore. Lourdes, someplace in France.
Lords.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Anyway, something like that. So anyways, yeah, the Germans were pushing against the British, and it looked like they had won the day, and then angels appeared in the sky over the British lines, and they stopped their attack and backed off.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a very famous story.
very cool.
Look it up.
All
If
right.
you could let me know the place where it was, since I
We
can't
had
say
for
it evidently.
This show.
Yeah. Anyways, I just gave it. We have it in the show. I gave it a synopsis of it.
Well-
But you got something much better, Ann, don't you?
Boy, I have the top 10 World War II hauntings.
Wow.
I know you've all been waiting to hear.
With bated breath.
I got to put my ugly glasses on so I can see because I'm old. So,
And you were making fun of the people that were in the Ghostbusters?
yeah, well, I'm not as old as the people in Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
I'm
well, you're
sorry,
getting there.
dear.
I hate to tell you.
Well, they'll always be older than me.
You know, until they're dead. Then they stay the same age. Once you die, you're the same age.
This is true. So these are haunted World War II's top 10 weirdest tales.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
All right, so the first one says, warbirds are still flying the UK's haunted skies. During World War II, the skies above the UK buzzed with every make and model of warbird that the Allied and often the Axis powers could produce. Bombers, fighters, and transports made England the world's biggest aircraft carrier. After the war, you would expect the skies of the UK to quiet down a little. But dozens of witnesses have claimed to have seen World War II aeroplanes cruising above England. One of them was spotted over England in 2015, and it was not a freak apparition or anything brought on post-traumatic stress. It happened when a World War II plane was seen flying over Dark Peak in northern Derbyshire. Derbyshire. The area is known for ghost and aircraft sightings, and that is part of what gives the area its name. The World War II bomber plane was seen flying over the area by several witnesses and was identified by former RAF pilots who were well versed on the look of World War II planes. All right, that was our first one. Number 2, apparition invasion. A group of holiday vacationers said they encountered while on holiday at the beaches of Deep, site of a bloodily botched raid in World War II. During the early morning hours of August 4th, a few weeks before the anniversary of the Deep raid, or Operation Jubilee, the group said they heard the bark of cannons and the shouts and screams of soldiers.
Cannons bark?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard a cannon bark.
I never heard a cannon bark either.
The band of Spirit Brothers even had air cover, the witnesses said, adding that they heard the scream of dive bombers. When the vacationers went out to investigate, the next morning they found no sign of a real armed incursion and promptly reported their experiences to paranormal authorities.
Ooh.
The paranormal police?
Zach Biggins.
I don't know. Who is that?
It must have been Zach Biggins. or
Hello, paranormal
Jason
police.
Hawes, Ryan Bull, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just
Pick
trying to
one.
figure it.
Number 3, a German general's ghost in the United States. You might expect the ghost of German General Erwin Rommel to be gliding through the sands of North Africa or staring out onto the English Channel from the cliffs over Omaha Beach, or even appearing in his homeland of Germany. But believe it or not, your best chance of running into the spectral version of the Desert Fox is in the American South. People claim they saw Rommel's ghost in graveyards and in a hotel in Virginia. The ghost, Russ just went, huh? In the control room. The bit of ghost lore is based on Rommel's supposed secret visit before the war to America to study Civil War battlefields and tactics. Historians say there's no evidence of that secret mission. Believers say the ghost is evidence enough for them.
Do you know, though, that actually we had German prisoners here in the United States in internment camps, and some of them did escape. So maybe what's being thought is Rommel was actually another German officer.
There you go.
So just saying, trying to find his way back home.
That's right.
Could be.
Number 4, the not-so-passive Pacific. The Pacific Theater was the scene of World War II's most violent battles. In Okinawa, a Pacific island about 1,000 miles from Tokyo, the battle became personal. Japanese strategists knew that if the Americans seized Okinawa, they would have a base suitable to stage an invasion of Japan's mainland. They filled the imagination of the island civilians with tales of supposed American atrocities. When the U.S. did invade, thousands of Okinawans reportedly jumped off cliffs to their deaths. Visitors to the island say that they have heard the beat of footsteps rush by them to the cliffs and heard screams. Some have even said that when they
Sort
heard...
of like the Democrats when a Republican gets elected. They always threaten to leave the country or jump off cliffs, but they're still here.
We're not going to discuss that.
Oh, okay.
Some have even said when they heard the footsteps and simultaneously felt a breeze blow by them. Others believe the presence of spirits passed directly through them as the ghosts reenact their last desperate leap.
Oh.
I think I don't know if I'd kill myself in anticipation of what someone might I don't know. They'd have to be a lot closer.
I'd
I
always
think.
go down fighting. I'd never be captive.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
once you're a captive, you're screwed.
Well, I don't think I'd jump off a cliff before they got there. But
No, I wouldn't. That's what I mean. I'd
yeah,
fight
there you go.
until I get killed, and then
Number
hey,
number
done
5.
deal.
Remember that, everybody, if you're trying to abduct Ron.
Yeah, don't try it.
He's going to put up
I even tell Jan that, and Jan agrees with me. So
fight.
none of us, don't mess with us.
Don't mess with the Koleks. Number 5, haunted harbors. America's battleships played key offensive and defensive roles during World War II. Many of these ships were brought back to the States, where they became both museums to preserve history and floating tributes to the sailors who served on board these floating fortresses. Some of those sailors are still around, according to legends. Moored in the appropriately named Cape Fear River, the USS North Carolina, for instance, is supposedly haunted with several ghosts. Witnesses have seen, felt, and heard the ghostly presences while touring, working, and investigating on board the ship. Number 6, signs and synchronicities. Say that?
No.
You would kill that.
No.
You would kill that.
I
Ron
would.
kill that. Famed Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung coins the term synchronicity for events that seemed related but aren't causally connected. That's a tough word. Others might call this phenomena signs. Jung must have had a field day during World War II when synchronicities became part of the headlines in war coverage. In one case, an advertisement which featured a graphic with dice sporting a 12 and a 7 seemed to predict Japan's pending attack on Pearl Harbor. In another bizarre case, code names for aspects of the D-Day invasion cropped up in crossword puzzles. Now, people wonder whether these were just coincidences or the manifestation of unknown forces. Because 12/7 was Pearl,
Well, no, it
when
was
they invaded Pearl Harbor, right?
oh, Pearl Harbor,
Yeah.
you're right. I was thinking D-Day.
Nope, that's D-Day.
Silly.
June.
Yeah.
Number 7, freaky Foo Fighters. Everyone knows that the modern UFO era began with Kenneth Arnold's 1947 sighting of a formation of unidentified craft flying like a saucer if you skipped it across water over Mount Rainier in Washington. Or did it? During World War II, several pilots claimed to see objects fly near or even at their formations. Descriptions of the crafts resembled what Arnold saw during his jaunt over the Cascades. The pilots dubbed these weird flying machines Foo Fighters.
You should name a band after
Good
that.
name for a band, yeah.
Yeah.
And many UFOologists, ufologist?
I don't know, ufologist? I know
Say these
ufologists.
sightings ushered in the first credible reports of UFOs in modern history. Number 8, the ghost tank. We've heard of ghost ships, ghost planes, and even ghost trains. We did a whole show about that.
We did.
Planes, trains, automobiles. But at least according to one group of witnesses, a ghost tank may still be patrolling the former battlefields of the Eastern Front. Witnesses told a newspaper that one night, while scouring the fields for artifacts from the war, a team of war trophy hunters say they distinctly heard the unmistakable clanking of steel treads and the roar of an engine cutting through the otherwise silent darkness. Too scared to investigate at the moment, let alone who wants to take on a vaunted Soviet T-34 tank, let alone the ghost of one, they did report finding what looked like the twin tracks of some type of vehicle in the ground, and the tracks were fresh.
Ooh.
Okay, the Churchill-Lincoln Spirit Summit, Ron has already taken from me.
I had no clue. Talk about, wait a
there
minute,
you go.
Talk about synchronicity.
Synchronicity. This was Abraham Lincoln's ghost, Winston Churchill in the nude. Winston got out of the bathtub, like Ron said. Abraham's leaning against the fireplace. Prime Minister simply said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage."
I think you would.
And then poor Lincoln just faded
I'm so
away.
sorry, and I didn't realize that was in there.
It's all
I
right.
feel awful now.
Don't worry
so
about
terrible.
it. I kind of forgot about it too, or I would have yelled at you.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
Then again, when don't you yell at me? So.
And number 10, never. 007 meets 666. Secret agents during World War II came from all walks of life. Some were military, some were civilian. Only one claimed to be the Antichrist, however. According to historians and paranormal theorist Aleister Crowley, a magician, occult legend, and master provocateur, served as a secret agent or secret agent provocateur. Ooh, I got to say it twice. During the war. These experts even suggest that future James Bond creator Ian Fleming, an intelligence officer during World War II, did you know that? I didn't know that, enlisted Crowley's magical talents to cast a spell that eventually lured Rudolf Hess, Adolf Hitler's head henchman, to secretly fly to England on a so-called peace mission. Another story says that Prime Minister Winston Churchill's V for Victory sign was actually an occult gesture proposed by Agent 666 himself, Aleister Crowley.
Right.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, you know that Glenn Miller, he disappeared, and there was talk that he was a secret agent too. Yeah, so
I had read about that. I actually have that tucked away at the back here, but I know we've talked about it before.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And it was pretty interesting. I think it was a little bit of a stretch, but hey,
One of my
you never
favorite
know.
songs. You never knew. A lot of them, helped out during. I mean, it was war. It was total war at that time. Everybody was involved. I mean, D-Day. The kids that were killed, and that's what they were, just kids. Some of them were 16 years old.
Right.
They lied about their age to get into the army. That's because everybody wanted to be, part of this, and it was horrible. I saw a program on D-Day, Untold Stories of D-Day. It's on Netflix, in fact, I believe. But it was really, really interesting. And we had these bright ideas. Somebody gave me a bright idea about floating tanks into the beach at Omaha.
Oh.
And the only problem was it didn't work very good. The sea was too rough. They only tried it on calm area. And of the 27 tanks that went in, only 2 made it to the beach. And they were pretty well destroyed. I mean, it was brutal. You couldn't believe the carnage, especially at Omaha. Omaha was the worst. That was where the Americans were. And I mean, they would have these landing craft that would come, they're just a big boat in the front would come down and they would run out. The Germans had machine gun nests all up and down the beach, and they could fire something like 60 bullets in a second, or some ridiculous amount. And as soon as they dropped that thing, they would like wipe out half the people in it. Yeah, more before. And some brilliant guy decided that they wouldn't mount machine guns on the landing craft when they landed because they were afraid of friendly fire taking out our own boys. And that was probably not a great decision. But yeah, it was. It's really terrible. Nobody can understand the carnage that went through there at that time. So, anyway.
And a lot of kids, I was saying to Ron before we started the show, there's a lot of kids that have absolutely no idea what D-Day means.
Oh, God.
And not just kids, young adults. They probably could not tell you what is D-Day.
That's terrible because, that was what it was all about, was to free Europe from the Nazis, and that was the start of it. I mean, we had the fake army that was supposedly going to land at Calais, and that kept the Germans off guard. But of all the beaches, and the Americans had Omaha, and another one, I reached Omaha, and what's the other one? Oh, God, I can't think of it. Anyways, and the British and their allies had another one and like that, but we had absolutely the worst one. And before that, paratroopers were sent in to come in behind the enemy lines, and they were supposed to seize points in the river to prevent reinforcements from coming to the Germans. And it was terrible that night. A lot of them ended up in trees and were bayoneted. A lot of them ended up in swamps. But they got together and they were able to, get their objective. But it was pure carnage, absolutely carnage of it. There's a good, there was another good show on Netflix too. I think it was the Battle for the Aleutian Islands. No, I don't know if do you know where the Aleutian Islands are?
I've heard of them, but I don't know where they
It's
are.
part of Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the little chain of islands that go down, and when the Japanese, their plan was to invade, take out Midway and Dutch Harbor, which was in the Aleutian Islands, and that would there'd be no protection for Hawaii, and they could go right on to Hawaii and then to the West Coast. But we defeated them at Midway and also at Dutch Harbor. But they did take the end of the Aleutian chain, and we built another base on another island that was abandoned. It's terrible conditions. But this check it out. It's on Netflix, and it was produced in 1943 during the war, and it shows you what it was like. It's a propaganda film, of course. It's just showing life at the base, the American base that we built, attacking the other base. And it's interesting to see what it was like and what those guys went through in here, which was basically a base, away from, not like in the foxholes or anything like at D-Day or anything. But I mean, we can't comprehend nowadays what hell it was in World War II and World War I as well.
Right.
So anyway,
That's scary.
so you have a clip drive. I assumed you finished those, right?
Yes, I finished my top
Okay.
10. And we have a clip from, I want to give this gentleman credit, and of course I wrote his name down on
Someplace.
the first piece of paper that I just flipped underneath. Okay. And this is interesting. His name is Mark Felton, and I found him on YouTube, and he does a lot of World War II mini documentary style things with vintage footage, and he just has a lot of interesting things. But one of the things he had done, it was actually a quick one. It was a little Halloween special from a couple years back. But it is about a haunted bomber, the Lincoln RF-398. And Russ, if you could roll that clip, we will play it for you.
At one of Britain's premier aviation museums, an exhibit has confounded paranormal investigators for decades. Opened in 1979, the RAF Museum at Cosford, Shropshire, today houses dozens of aircraft that have served the United Kingdom, along with captured enemy aircraft, some famous airliners, and the National Cold War exhibition. Among this stellar cast of aircraft is an Avro Lincoln B-2 bomber, RF-398. It is said that this bomber is haunted, and a thorough investigation has led to some very interesting evidence that is hard to dismiss out of hand. RF-398 is a rare aircraft, one of just 4 examples of this late-war British bomber in existence today. The Avro Lincoln was a 4-engined heavy bomber that first flew on the 9th of June 1944. Developed from the Avro Lancaster, the Lincoln entered service in the late 1940s, but in the 1950s the RAF adopted 3 new V-bombers, advanced jet-powered strategic bombers to carry Britain's nuclear deterrent, and the Lincoln was phased out, the last of the piston-engine bombers in the RAF. RF-398 had first flown on the 11th of September 1945, but was not issued to an operational squadron until 1952. Struck from RAF service in 1963, it arrived at the then RAF Cosford in the late summer of 1968 for storage. The museum opened in 1979, but by then RF-398 was in a dilapidated condition. Mechanics started a long-term restoration. During the restoration of the aircraft, some strange occurrences were reported, including ghostly figures seen both inside and outside of the plane, strange sounds and other unexplained phenomena. It was later revealed that some of these incidents were fabricated by a couple of mischievous mechanics, but not all of them. The strange stories soon attracted paranormal investigators. It was then that things really began to get weird. In a serious effort to explain what might be at the root of the strange noises that people had heard emanating from the aircraft at night, investigators decided to place microphones in the cockpit. The first attempt was made one night in 1987. They had left a recording machine turning, left the aircraft and sealed the hangar, and returned 40 minutes later to find the top of the tape machine lifted and the tape spread about the cockpit. Researchers tried again in 1991. Microphones were again set up inside the aircraft. The hangar was evacuated and sealed, and the tapes left running. What they recorded has remained controversial, a series of clicks and other mechanical sounds quite distinct from the normal groans and creaks of the hangar cooling down or the aircraft settling at night. Let's listen to the actual sounds recorded during those investigations. Here's some of the clicks. Later recordings also picked up another strange sound. The hangar had been sealed for the night, signed tape placed over each of the doorways. On each occasion, the investigators used several different microphones and recording devices to ensure that the sounds were not faulty equipment. What follows is another mysterious recording made inside the empty aircraft at night. The recordings were played to former Lincoln aircrew. They immediately identified the clicks as the sounds of a pilot and crew undertaking standard pre-flight preparations. But what about that strange whining sound? It was eventually identified as the sound of a piece of navigational equipment called console. None have been operational since 1956, begging the question of how a hoaxer could have fabricated the specific sound the equipment made. So what could be the cause? It was said that the last pilot who flew RF-398 loved the Lincoln and claimed he would return to, quote, haunt his baby, unquote. He was killed in an air crash near Cosford shortly afterwards. Perhaps this explains the spectral figure who has been reported by staff at the museum, a figure seen sitting in the navigator's position in the nose or in the rear gun turret. Whether you believe the evidence presented here or not, Lincoln RF-398 has indeed a curious reputation. So if you visit Cosford, glance up at her cockpit window, and perhaps you'll see her last pilot staring right back at you.
Oh, that's so scary.
Don't be scared, Ron. It's okay. So I don't know about the noises. He even says in the video, underneath the little description, he's like, I know the noises are a little over the top. It was a Halloween special, so I've just nicely discontinued all the comments on this video because people were all over him.
When I heard that whining sound, I thought it sounded almost like a bomb drop. It went,
I don't hear it at all. At all. I just, my range of hearing is not real great. So Ron said, oh, it sounds like a bomb dropping. And I said, I don't hear a thing. All I hear is
So if I want to say something bad with you, I just have to say it in falsetto.
in a very high-pitched screech. I won't. Yep.
I actually
That's
had
true.
the opportunity to investigate a couple of B-17 bombers.
Really?
Yeah.
Where?
From World War II. They were at Beverly Airport. They were Dan Parsons, rest his soul, who was a member of my team for many years, was also in the Civil Air Patrol, and he actually had an office and everything at the airport. And these planes were part of an air show that came in.
Nice.
So we were able to get on board and do some investigating on it. It was really cool, actually. I had a blast. We did pick up, like on the recording, what sounded like an engine running on it. There was also another sound of people talking, but we couldn't hear what they were saying. But I think the most interesting thing that happened is we felt that there was somebody who was killed by a propeller.
Ew.
But there was also some other stuff like we picked up other. It didn't mesh. It just didn't make, we had like other spirits. It didn't kind of like, it seems like they weren't even there at the same time. It was really strange. We're trying to figure out what was going on. And like this plane wasn't supposed to be this way. And so Dan actually did some research on it and found out that the plane was actually put together by several planes. So they made this plane out of other planes.
Pieces.
Yes, and during the war, because we found out what plant they came from, which was, I believe, in Washington or out on the West Coast anyways. And there is a report on one of them where they were testing the engines and one of the workers actually got killed by the propeller.
Oh, God, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it was a unique opportunity to investigate a really cool thing, and absolutely loved it. I wish I had some more time to do it.
That is really neat. It's kind of like that flight the one that had crashed in the Everglades,
Right,
and then they
right.
put all the pieces into other flights,
Right,
and they started seeing the ghosts of the pilots and things like that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, anyway. All right, so we are coming on time, and I want to talk a little bit about the Nazis and the occult.
Okay.
Yeah, you heard something about this, right?
I have heard something, but I
Maybe
don't know a
something
lot
like
about
Raiders
it.
of the Lost Ark?
Yes, yes,
Great story,
that's right.
by the way. But anyways, this is according to Eric Kurtlander, professor of history at Stenson University. He tracked the fringe movements and lunatic beliefs that swept through Germany during the 19th and 20th century. In particular, he documents intense interest in parapsychology, New Age fantasies, and so-called border science. Some of the Nazi leaders believed the Aryan race was descended from aliens who established Atlantis, and that Satan was really a good guy, and that werewolves actually protected clean-living Teutons, Teuton. They're knights. They're knights from the thing. That in their fight against the sexual deprived Slavic vampires.
Right.
Just saying.
Those sexual
Kurtline groups all these, as well as Nazi obsession with the Holy Grail, witchcraft, Lutheranism. Why do I get these? World ice theory, anti-gravity machine, astrology, and pagan rituals under the supernatural imaginary of the Third Reich. Third Reich. Anyways, it's an interesting thing because it goes back to, let me see some of the thing. I don't want to go through all this.
This is quite a hodgepodge of things.
Oh, it is actually German theophysical circles. It was commonly believed, German. Don't you have theophysical circles? I'm sure we
all
have.
over the place.
In German theophysical circles, it's commonly believed that India and Tibet preserved in hidden caves were the writings of ancient Eleusinians, the people from Atlantis, or even the secrets of the masters. One man named Guido von List proved that Baldur, Jesus, Buddha, Osiris, and Moses were all pure-blooded Aryans.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And witches
He proved that.
And witches were simply earth mothers and practitioners of traditional Indo-Germanic religion.
All right.
Yeah, they actually sent a lot of expeditions to try to find proof of the Aryan race. And this, I don't want to go into this thing about why they hate the Jews, but we'll skip over that part.
Let's.
Yeah. But where's the other cool thing?
Probably pretty well established that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyways, as late as 1942, Hitler declared himself a supporter of the world ice theory. Do you know what the world ice theory is?
No.
Or, as we like to say, glacial cosmogony.
Cosmogony?
Yeah. Yeah.
glacial cosmogony.
It maintains that icy moons crashed into the Earth, causing the floods and geophysical damage, but also bringing living kernels, like popcorn kernels, from outer space
Oh my God.
that evolved
What?
into Aryan super beings.
Oh,
Yeah, according
this
to
sounds like a comic book.
Is there
a comic
SS.
book out there
Nope.
that does these
Maybe,
things?
maybe. According to SS chief Heinrich Himmler, perhaps the most ardent of the Nazi occultists, the Euro-Asian possessed paranormal powers and extraordinary weapons. One dimly recalls the Thor's hammer. Remember that
Thor's
from,
hammer.
Yeah, you remember that from the Avengers.
Uh-huh.
Himmler sent
I remember Thor.
yeah, hunk, isn't he?
Uh-huh.
If I was gay.
I don't know, I like Aquaman myself.
Anyway, really, I haven't seen Aquaman. But anyways, there was he had set up a special thing at the castle, and one of the castles, I forget which one. I think it's Nuremberg Castle, one of the castles, anyways. And they would keep their archives, and they worked on to prove that the Aryans were the Aleutians that were really from outer space, and all this technology that they had. All the papers, unfortunately, were burned after the war, so no war crimes could be committed, because they did human experimentation. But they sent expeditions out to Tibet, and other places to try to find some of this stuff, like in the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
So anyway, that's the little spiel on him.
Okay.
So one of the
Why is your cell phone going off in the middle of this show?
because it's paranormal.
Uh-huh. Okay. Turn off your paranormal ringtone.
Nobody calls me. Who the hell's calling me? Anyways, there are other strange things with the Nazis, and of course there's this book out which is called The Nazi Seance, and this is really bizarre. I bought this book for Steve Parsons, who's from the UK.
Yes.
And I actually bought a couple of them, and I gave him one, but this was the original one I bought. And it came in, and it says, from the London Public Library. So I'm giving it to a guy from the U.S. He's coming to, he's
Here's your
coming to
book back.
Yeah, so, yeah. Can you return this? My fine's getting thing. But anyways, basically, let me see just do the quick thing on this. Yeah, the most famous, let's see, here we go. And during the Germans had a fascination with the occult everywhere. In private, they had private seances, sounds familiar. Personalized psychic readings, sounds familiar. Communication with the dead. And, they tried, because they were really, after the World War I, they got screwed terribly bad. They were really, they had wheelbarrows full of money. That's how bad they were. The I can't say it. What they had to pay for the First World War to all the people that beat them was ridiculous. Anyways, so that's how Hitler got into power, basically. So anyways, in the 1930s, the most famous mentalist in Germany was a man named Erich Jan Hansen. He was a Jew who was a reader in Vienna. And he also became so popular that he rubbed elbows with the highest ranking Nazis, and including Hitler himself.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this book is all about
Apparently
the seances.
this one Jew was okay.
Yeah.
The rest of them had to go into the camps, but this guy could stay.
If you want me, I can tell you why, but according to their belief. But anyways, he was also like Nostradamus, where he had predictions and everything, and he did a lot of things on that. I just read today, and I don't know how accurate it was, but they believe that the U-boat operators actually would use dowsing to find ships.
Really?
Yeah, map dowsing. Map dowsing is a thing.
Well,
That's
yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Map dowsing is pretty cool. We did that at Spirit Quest a couple of years ago. We had a map of Spirit Quest, and Steve Parson, he was the only one who knew, had these little pirate coins that he hid around really well.
I remember, yeah.
And the girl from New York, what's her name, Jessica, went around. She did the map 1,000, and I think she found like 4 of the 5 coins or something like that.
Wow.
Some ridiculous amount. Yeah, she did really good just with map 1,000. So anyways, but one of the items that Hitler became, I guess what's the word, fixated on was the Spear of Destiny. You know what the Spear of Destiny is?
Well, I do, but why don't you tell us what
Okay.
it is?
Okay, the legendary Christian relic is the Spear of Longinus. It's identified in folklore as the Spear of Destiny, or the lance that pierced Christ's side when he was on the cross 2,000 years ago. The cult legend states that whoever claims the spear understands its significance holds the destiny of the world. Am I keeping you up?
No.
Okay, good. So he became fixated. In fact, there's a story that when Hitler was just an artist, because he was an artist, I didn't know if you knew that, bad artist, but he was an artist.
I had heard that he was, yes.
He was in Vienna,
Some
and he
really
went to
terrible
the
paintings.
Habsburg Museum where the spear was, and heard the legend about it and everything else, and became fascinated with it. And when the German invaded Austria, they went into the museum and took the spear, and I actually have a replica. Oh my God, this thing is heavy.
Holy cow.
Can we zoom in on this?
Oh
Is this
my
possible?
goodness.
To come in really close?
There you go.
Here it is. That's good. As you can see, it's big and heavy. But inside it is supposedly one of the nails from the cross,
Oh my God.
and that is encased in this, which is not really gold, but
No.
it's supposed to be real gold, sheath that was put on later. The interesting thing about it is that when they took this off and they look at this absolutely microscopic writing on the metal,
Oh,
which doesn't make sense because at that time they couldn't do that.
right.
So it's a mystery. They don't know where that comes from.
So, and it also, is there something written?
Yeah, it's a
On
bunch
the
of
outside of
Latin words, of course.
Oh, okay.
You want to read it for me? I can't read it.
I can't read Latin. I'm
I can't
terribly
read it.
sorry.
I mean, I could do a whole show on this. The other thing is there are, oh God, that thing is heavy.
Pretty scary, actually. Yeah.
Anyways, there's actually some controversy, of course, on it. There are 2, 3, maybe 4 spears of destiny.
Oh.
This is the Habsburg, the one that Hitler stole, and there is another one called the Antioch one, which is another one kept by monks, and there's one, I believe, in the Vatican as well, so I know those 3. So there's a little bit of controversy.
Well,
of
who
which
would
is-
really be around to know? Who would know? Who would know what the actual?
Well, supposedly they can trace it because, like, Charlemagne had the spear, and there's a whole bunch of guys that had it that were, you know, Emperor Constantine and a bunch of other ones. I'm not going to go through all of them. Charles Martel, which is another one, and whatever. So there's, anyway. There's the story. Okay. Anyways, the spear was recovered and gave back to the Habsburg Museum. Anyways, but you can read about it. There's a lot on the internet, and I know we actually ran out of time. Can you believe that?
I know.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. If you like, you know, ancient mysteries and stuff, it's a great thing. And this is a nice replica. It weighs quite a few pounds.
It is. It's really
I also
heavy.
have a replica of the Antioch one as well,
Oh.
but it's not as cool as that one. The
No.
Antioch one is a resin one. It's made out of resin. Well, this is actually steel. So anyway, so that's our little story, and of course there's we talked about movies earlier. I talked about Red Lights and some of
Yes.
the other ones. I want to mention one other one. if you, because one of the theories is that the Germans had a secret base in Antarctica, which you can read about this. There are some books on that. But there's also another theory that after the war, Hitler escaped to the moon.
The moon.
Right.
Okay. How did he get to the moon?
Well, you know, you look at it and you say, oh, that's crazy, but how did we get to the moon?
Right.
With German scientists.
I suppose.
They had the V1 and the V2, which were rockets. So anyways.
I don't think I've ever heard that theory.
You really? Oh,
No.
It's crackpot theory.
Yeah.
By the way,
I agree.
The anniversary of the lunar lander was this month, and I do want to mention that I actually worked on the lunar lander
Cool.
when I was going to college for RCA. In fact, I found my badge certification and all that cool stuff the other day,
neat.
which is kind of cool.
That is
so my
cool.
junk is on the moon there.
Ron's, yeah, let's not say
So
that.
anyways,
Let's not go there.
yeah, let's not. So anyways, if you want to check out a movie, it's a lot of fun. It's called Iron Sky. It was an independent movie. And check it out. It's about Nazis on the moon, and they come to invade the United States.
Nazis on the moon.
Yeah, and they have a
Sounds
president.
like a great, like a B movie or maybe.
No, it's
C
pretty
movie.
decent. It's it's a fun movie. It really is. And of course, the president at the time is someone who reminds me so much of a young woman that ran a few years back by the name of Sarah Palin.
Really?
You've got to watch this movie. It's a
Really?
riot. It really is. I enjoyed it.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I don't know how much time we
Do it
have left. I think
scantily clad German women in it, or no?
no,
No.
but yeah,
Not like
it's
that.
well, actually, well, never mind.
Well, actually.
Yeah. So, anyways, check it out. It's on Netflix. No, it's not on Netflix. It's on Comcast. Tubi or Tubi, whatever it's called.
What?
Tubi,
Tubby?
Tubi. It's like Amazon Prime.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that. Is
Do
it new?
you have Comcast?
Yes.
So when you talk in your remote, say free movies.
I don't have a fancy remote that I can talk into.
What?
I don't.
How archaic.
I know.
All right, talking to the spirit destiny, you say free movies,
Okay.
and it'll come up on there. And one of the things it has is this free service, which is Tubi or Tubi.
Okay. Probably Tubi.
It's like like
To be or not to be.
I like Tubi.
But we do have to go.
Do we really?
Now we really have to go.
We do.
We do.
Well,
Thank you for listening to our show on D-Day, Ghosts and Hauntings. As we, I don't know if celebrate is the right word, commemorate
that's a
the
good word.
75th anniversary.
And right, and war was hell. If you don't believe it, you've got to look at some of the documentaries that have done on D-Day and some of the other battles fought. And,
Absolutely.
I don't know if I could go through what those guys went through.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
But we will see you next month on Ghost Chronicles
Maybe.
Next Generation. Maybe.
Unless I kick
Yes,
the
we
bucket.
will. We will see you. Will you see you?
You
we
know
will
that
see you
haunt-
on our next
That
show.
haunted picture, I have no idea
No,
what's
the
going to
haunted
happen.
picture. Thank you for listening. We have to say goodnight.
Good night. God
Good
bless.
night, everybody.
From ghoulies to ghosties, long-leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night. Deliver us, good Lord.